Thank you very much for being with us tonight for this new conference organized by the Turkey section of Français du Monde ADFE. So my name is Jérémy. I'm the president of the section. I'm also a freelance journalist and the correspondent in Turkey of the French newspaper Libération. So yes, as I was saying just before, if during the conference you can all keep the microphone off and the video off so that we have a good connection and we can all hear each other, that would be perfect. Hassan, you can keep the video and the microphone since you are one of our guests tonight. So the video will be put on our YouTube channel after that, so that those who want to see it again can without any trouble. And I will send a link after that. And then, yes, so we are organizing these kind of conferences every 3-4 weeks, usually on political topics, on concept debates that goes to the left, but not only. The last one was on the American election and the rise of the new socialist movement in the US with a journalist from the French media part. It was the Human Index. The conference is online on our YouTube channel. And tonight we're going to talk about a pretty sensitive topic. Sensitive first because it's on migration, and this has created a lot of tensions in Europe over the last few years, let's say 10 years. And then we will also sensitive because we are going to talk about a humanitarian crisis that is currently happening at the border between Turkey and Greece, and by extension between Turkey and the European Union. This humanitarian crisis, basically, it is the Greek authorities pushing back migrants who attempt to reach Europe, either on land or on by the sea. These are called pushbacks. We have seen a sharp increase over the last 10-12 months of these practices. It is an illegal practice, and that puts everybody in danger. Just once again, all those who join us, please turn off your videos and your microphone so that the connection goes well and smoothly. Tonight we have two guests. One is Hassan, who you can see on the video. Hassan is from Syria, from the province of Idlib in the northwest of Syria. And he is actually here because about a month and a half ago, he was a victim of two pushbacks, one in Edirne and another one off the coast of Marmaris, in the south, on his way to the island of Rhodos. So thank you for being with us, Hassan, and thank you again for agreeing on telling us your story. And our second guest is Mary Reed. Mary is a member of the NGO Mare Liberum, an NGO that is based on the island of Lesbos in Greece, that is monitoring the human rights violation in the Aegean Sea. So Mary will be talking about the general situation in Greece. Thank you, Mary, for being with us. So before I give the floor to our two guests, I just would like to give a brief overview of what we are talking about tonight. We can't talk about the situation in the Aegean Sea without putting it in a broader context. So basically, this story that matters for us tonight, it starts more or less a year ago, when in the northwest of Syria, the Syrian army of the President Bashar al-Assad and its allies from the Russian army starting a military operation in the northwest, in this province of Idlib. It is the last region in Syria that is under the control of rebel forces. And it is a region where there are 3 million civilians and also 20 to 30,000 armed rebels from different factions. And so when the Syrian army and the Russians started this military operation, we can directly say it was basically carpet bombing. The Russian and the Syrian Air Force were targeting, among other things, hospitals, schools, marketplaces, gardens, shelters, also camps. Among these 3 million civilians, many of them, about half of them at least, had already been displaced several times. And so as the military situation escalated, it was clearly a bloodbath. Civilians started moving north towards Turkey. And very soon they ended up being back to a wall, basically because there is nowhere else to go. For them, there was nowhere to seek refuge, and also because back to the wall, because the Turkish authorities built a wall over the last few years all along the Syrian border to prevent people from entering into Turkey. In February, I was, so as I was saying just before, we went with some of my colleagues to the border area. And basically from the city of Reyhanlı, which is on the Turkish side, we could see on the hills that are on the Syrian side, thousands of tents, makeshift shelters, anything people, families were camping under trees in freezing conditions. And during the interviews that we were doing, people were all saying that it was a matter of weeks, if not days, before they would start climbing over the wall and enter in Turkey, because for them it was a matter of life and death. Turkey is already hosting more than 4 million refugees, most of them under temporary protection. 3.6 million are Syrians. There are also a few hundred thousand people from Afghanistan, from Iran, from Pakistan, Somali, and so on. And for years now, since 2015-16, they are basically blocked in Turkey because there is this agreement between Turkey and the EU, where Turkey is in charge of blocking the passage to Europe. So at the end of February last year, the Turkish authorities, in a kind of very cynical and sneaky way, decided to announce that they would stop preventing people from going to Europe. Overnight, thousands of people rushed to the border in Edirne. They were hoping that Greece would open its border as well, and surprise, Greece didn't open its border. Especially in the border post of Pazarkule, thousands of people were gathering there. There were violent clashes with Greek border guards who were repelling people who were trying to enter. And the situation escalated. The Turkish state media were constantly saying that tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people had already crossed to Greece, when it was obviously not the case. So they were instrumentalizing the situation to push more and more people to go to Greece in an attempt to get more involvement of the European Union in the management of the humanitarian crisis in Syria, but also to support financially the management of these millions of people who are refugees in Turkey. Journalists, NGOs, normal citizens, we all witnessed at the border with Greece already pushbacks. People were trying to cross the river, sometimes with the indication of Turkish policemen and military saying, like, it's this way, please cross. And as they were reaching Greek soil, many of them were directly detained by Greek border guards, sometimes beaten up. Most of the time, they got all their belongings taken away from them, including passports, telephone, and their money. And sometimes they were also, and most of the time, they were sent back to Turkey. In some cases, they were stripped naked and sent back to Turkey through the freezing water of the Evros River. It's a bit of a personal comment, but it was very much inhuman what was happening there. And in this very cynical game played between Turkey and the European Union, people were trying to go to Europe, were basically pawns, completely dehumanized in this situation. Since this migration crisis of March that kind of ceased mainly because of the epidemics of coronavirus, we have witnessed a sharp increase of pushbacks in the agency and at the land border between Turkey and Greece, and so Turkey and the European Union. When we speak of sharp increase, it's hundreds of cases, thousands of people involved in these pushbacks. And it's not just at the border, it's also behind the borders, meaning that people were already settled in Greece have been arrested and sent to Turkey illegally. I will just stop here because I think the best way to understand what are pushbacks is actually having someone explaining directly, and we experienced directly a pushback. Hassan, you unfortunately experienced that twice in a matter of a few weeks. The first time in Edirne, so in the northwest of Turkey, the land border with Greece. Another time as you were trying to cross to the island of Rhodes. So if you agree, could you tell us your story once again? Thank you.
Yes, yeah, thank you, Jeremy. Hello, everyone. My name is Hassan. I'm from Syria, from Idlib province. During last October, I tried to cross the Turkish-Greek border twice. The first one from Edirne province, the second one from Marmaris to Rhodos. So the first one, a car came from Istanbul, took us from Istanbul. We don't know each other. We just gathered in the car. We were around 20 person. We reached to a small town near to the borders, like 4 kilometers or 3 kilometers from the borders. And we walked till we reached to the Greek-Turkish borders. That was around 10 p.m. or 11. We stayed the whole night because there was a lot of people there. They couldn't cross us. So we stayed the whole night. The next morning, we spent the whole day also there. In the evening, they prepared a rubber boat for us, and they start crossing us like 7-8 person each time. After our group completed, we start walking slowly because there was families and women. We start walking. After 30 minutes, I think they knew that we are coming because during the day there was a lot of noise. The Turkish military forces came to us and they stopped there. They saw us. They take pictures. They took pictures of us. So if somebody in the Greek side definitely will see there's an activity in this point. So 30 minutes they spotted us and they captured us. They put us in like a big hall, like 15 meters in one of the security centers there. We stayed there also the whole day. Then they brought cars. And they took us to a different point, the one they captured us, and that was during the night. They took like 8 p.m. or something, 8 or 9 p.m. Of course, during the period with the Greek military forces, they took our phones, money, jackets, shoes. They searched us very, very, very carefully so that we don't hide anything. Even they searched our underwears. So and if they found something with anyone, he will get like they will hit him. If they found a phone or money or even a SIM card or anything that they asked for before. So after we reached the river, what they are doing, they are hiring people from the refugees themselves. For example, if someone crossed the border and he can speak English and Turkish, they offer him a job contract for 2 months or 3 months. They are not going to pay him a lot, but at least they can give him a paper so that he can go to Athena or go to stay in Greek. So they don't push him back to Turkey. So some people are from Egypt, Palestine, Syria, working with them to cross the people back, to push back the people to the Turkish side, because they don't want to face the Turkish border guard. So they hired people from the refugees themselves to help them take the boat and return it back to them. So after they crossed us, we were without shoes, and the area is like a forest or open land, and it was night. There is no phones with us. We walked like 3-4 kilometers till we reached the nearest small town. From there is a lot of people waiting for refugees to come back, because it became a business for them. So we asked them that we need to go back to Istanbul. Then they brought cars and they took us. Of course, none of us has money, so we told them that once we reach there, we can give you. If someone from our friends or families will meet us there, and then we can give you. So this is in short what happened in Edirne. That was in the beginning in the first week of October, this October. Then I decided to not to try this way over again. So I went to Marmaris. I reached Marmaris in the 28th of October. It was around 4 o'clock. So I stayed at one hotel that night. In the morning, we have been informed, because I found some people also will go in this trip with me, because the name of the hotel has been given to us by the smugglers. So I found also some people there, like 7 people also will go in the same trip. So in 29 of October, 6 p.m., car came and took us to a place like 3 kilometers far from the coast, inside a forest. So we walked this area, this distance, and it was raining, so and forest and a cliff, so it took us like 4 or 5 hours to reach the coast. So we reached around 11 p.m. We slept the night there in the forest, and also we spent the whole day near to the coast waiting the boat to come. We left in the same day. 7 p.m. around 7 p.m. we left the Turkish coast. We were 19 persons, including 5 women and 9 men. There were also 5 children, their age 2, 3, 11, and 13, I think. In this range. So after 2 hours in the sea, a Greek military ship spotted us and approached. We were close to Rhodos Island. I think we could be there within 1 hour or less if we kept going. Anyhow, the military ship came close and throw 2 ropes to our boat, and the soldiers on board asked us to tie the ropes up to our boat. Then they start pulling us to their ship. So when our inflatable boat hit the ship, it got damaged and began to leak air, and the water comes in. So the soldiers asked us to climb up. I was the first. Once I put my hand on the ship surface, two soldiers grabbed me from my jacket from here and throw me so hard to the surface of the ship. They didn't hit me, but they like throw me from the edge to the surface and start yelling. Of course, there is shouting and yelling, some in English, some in Greek. In addition to the screaming from the boat also, because the people is very scared, so the women are crying. So all what I remember that the atmosphere was really filled with anger and scare. So they were angry and we were very scared. So the second climber was a Palestinian woman with her 3 years daughter. After she's on board, an officer came from the ship. An officer came and began to shout too, and he commanded the crew to return us back to our boat. Of course, we didn't argue or ask. The woman, the Palestinian woman, went down, and I followed. Then they give us the daughter. After we are on board on our boat, they used a long stick and pushed us away from their ship around 30-40 minutes. Now we are in a filled with water damaged boat and no running engine because, of course, our engine is stopped. The wave almost flipped us. So they are just watching. We don't know what's happening. So after 5 minutes, we saw another ship approaching. It turns out that it belongs to the Greek Coast Guard. Also, we were loaded into their ship the same way we did in the military ship. They gave us ropes and they pulled us. After we are on board, they start shooting our boat with a machine gun, both the military and the Coast Guard, the Coast Guard ship. But most of the shooting came from the Coast Guard ship. I don't know how many times they did it, but pretty sure that more than 20 to 30 times. It was a terrifying moment hearing that shooting in the middle of the sea. Of course, the woman and the children are crying, and we were very scared. We don't know. We were surprised to be in this situation. We didn't really expect that. We expect something like, but feeling it and living it, it's really something different. So they took us and they took our belongings to the back to the back of the ship, and they searched them as we were in the front of the ship. They asked us also to hand over our phones or any electronic devices we might have, like power bank or anything. Then they start searching us one by one with very, very aggressive way that make us feel like we are a very dangerous criminals, like in prison. So during the search, they found, I need to mention this, they found a tourist ID with one of the passengers issued by Turkey. So, and then since there is a Turkish flag and writing on the on it, they assumed that this person is a Turkish citizen who is part of the smuggling operation of ours. So they called him and they stripped his upper part of clothes and made him kneel while they were interrogating him in front of us. So he couldn't answer their question and defend himself because he doesn't speak English. Then he was looking at me. So I asked the permission from the soldiers or the crew of the ship to explain to them what is this ID. So after I explained, I told them this is not a Turkish ID, it's just a temporary tourism ID given by the Turkish government to the people who come to Turkey. So they looked to each other and then they searched his bare back for any previous marks, scars or something. I don't know what they were searching for, but I think they are looking if this person has come before, and because they are, what we heard that if they suspect that there is one of the smugglers on the board, they will hit him till death almost. So they didn't find any scar on his back. So they give him the ID and they told him to go back to his place. So then the ship drove 1 or 1.5 hours with massive speed. All the splashed water was hitting us as they put us in the back of the ship, but near to the edges. Our clothes completely wet. So after they stopped, they switched off the engine, they switched off the lights of their boat. They prepared 2 orange lifeboat, or I don't know what they call this, shovels or something, but it was orange and it has light in the top of it. Then they divided us into 2 groups and asked us to go inside these boats. So they used also a stick, long stick, to push us far from their ship, as the military ship did. Then while we were loaded into the boat, I tried to ask them what is going on, where are we, or what should we do? Is someone coming for us, or what's happening? They just kept looking at us with really grimy face and say, go, 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 yalla, yalla, go, go, like go now. So we go, so we cannot argue with them. So then they left us and returned back. So we are in the middle of the sea with no idea where are we. It was past midnight, I think. We just start waiting. We have no choice. We have no control of the boats because it's just like a floatable boat. So we just sat and waiting. Around 3 hours later, the waves pushed us close to a land. We could see it when the moon comes out because it was cloudy weather. So when the moon comes out, we can see there is a land. But what's this land? We don't know. So when we got closer, it appeared that it was a rocky coast. We saw the wave crash on the rocks, and with no control of the lifeboat's movement, we just sat waiting them to hit the rock. So the boat I was in reached the coast first and smashed into the reef a couple of times till was turned apart by the sharp rocks and start drowning slowly. The other boat hit different area, like 50 meters far from us. So we don't know how deep the water. We couldn't know because it was very fast moving because the wave is bringing us back and forth and smash us in the reef. So once we are close to the reef, I managed to jump to one of the rocks, and I hold the boat from moving and going back with the wave. So the guys also helped me to take all the women and the rest of the passengers far from the water, and we start climb the rocks a little bit far. In that moment, I saw the light of two ships approaching. So they belongs to the Turkish coast, Turkish guard coast. They came first for the other boat because the passengers still in. So they pulled the boat far from the reef and took the passenger, transferred them to the main ship. Then they sent us a small inflatable boat, and also they took us to the main ship. And after we reached there, we were completely wet because I jumped in the water till my neck, till here. So they give us some blanket and water, and I think Jeremy, you were there. So yeah, so this is basically what happened, and then they return us to the garde-côtes center, I think in Marmaris. We stayed there from 6 o'clock till 10 o'clock in the morning. And then they took us to the border guard that's called jandarma here in Turkey. We stayed the whole day till 8 p.m. or 7 p.m., between 7 and 8 p.m. Then they interrogate us, what happened, and they take our fingerprint, pictures, one by one, and then we sign what our papers. Then they brought a bus and they took us to the immigration department. In the immigration department, they knew that we are coming in advance, so they prepared some papers for us. So once we arrived, they gave us each one a paper, and he signed that he received. We spent like 1 hour or less than 1 hour there. So another bus came and took us to the bus station in Mola, yes, in Mola. From there, they dropped us and they say, you are free to go wherever you want, but you have to stick to the paper, because in the paper written, you have a limited like 15 days to return to your province. So this paper can be valid only for 15 days till you return to your province. Assuming that, they assume that we have what they call it here, the refugee ID or the kimlik, that's been issued by one of the province of Turkey. Yeah, so so this is basically what happened. We returned back and everyone went to different direction.
Okay. Thank you, Hassan.
Yeah.
Thank you for telling this story. Once again, I know how difficult it is, and as we were preparing this conference tonight, you were telling me how much bad memories this was bringing back to you. So thank you once again. As Hassan mentioned, yes, I was on the ship of the Turkish Coast Guard that night. The Coast Guard had agreed to have several journalists on this ship to actually witness these search and rescue missions as a way to document this increasing pushbacks by the Greek Coast Guard. Maybe a point to mention is that when you were on the life rafts, these orange life rafts first are manufactured in Greece. They are by a company that is based in the Piraeus next to Athens. And the thing is, you told me that you had tried to call the emergency service in Turkey to try to have a rescue, but you couldn't give your location to them. When we were on the Turkish Coast Guard ship, the captain of the ship was telling us that actually it's the Greek authorities that warned them. What happened is the headquarters of the Greek Coast Guard had warned the Ministry of Interior or one of the ministries in Ankara, that then said to the Turkish Coast Guard that there was your two rafts in jeopardy off the coast of Rhodos, and so the ship we were on went to find you about 1 hour and a half after the call. Thank you, Hassan. Maybe I should also precise one thing, like you mentioned this document saying that you need to be back in your province of registration within 15 days. It is worth to notice that for people who get a temporary protection, it's not a refugee status, because Turkey is not a member of the Convention of Geneva. This temporary protection allows people to stay in a specific province.
Yes, yes.
And
yeah.
So in your case, you're staying in Hatay, and it is very difficult to have the authorization to move from one province to the other one. And in a context of economic crisis, knowing that it's very difficult also to get a working permit when you are a refugee in Turkey, the situation can be very, very difficult for all those who stay in Turkey. Hassan, could you just tell us why you decided to try to move to Europe this time?
Well, the decision came like 2 months before the try. I was in Turkey. I tried to settle here. I tried to do something here, but I came here hoping that I can build a future for my family, providing them even the minimum basic needs like safe place, home, education, health. One second, Jerome, please.
Sure, no issue. If I can just add, the thing is, the agreement between Turkey and the European Union that was signed in 2016, negotiated after the first crisis in 2015, make sure that those who benefit from a temporary protection in Turkey have access to schools, to a health system. But once again, it's very difficult to find a job, and so to provide for the families. And the epidemics of coronavirus has made the situation even more difficult for those who stay in Turkey. This in a context also where there is an increasing wave of racism in Turkey against any Syrian, Afghans, and so on. And just to mention that too, a year ago, during the summer 2019, at the peak of this wave of xenophobia and racism, Turkish authorities also started rounding up refugees who were living in Turkey and to deport them to Afghanistan, to Syria, even people who had the proper documentation to stay in Turkey, who were registered in Turkey. So there is a very big climate of insecurity from all sides, precarity from all sides. The epidemics is really making things very, very difficult. And so there is an increasing number of people who are in such a disparate situation that they try to move to Europe. I think it's good to stress that no one takes such a decision happily. Thank you, Hassan.
Yes, you are correct. It's a very tough decision. If you don't forced to take it, you will never think of it. As I said, after 1 year of being in Turkey, looking for stability, I couldn't find it here. I think there is also a plan to make us feel we don't belong, because I don't know, there is maybe a plan for that. So in order to stay here, you need to have a job, you need to feel that it's a safe place for you and your children to grow and have a future. So with the job opportunity is very challenging here, and also the bad economic situation, especially after the currency has collapsed and the coronavirus came in addition to all of this. So I consumed all my saving here during 1 year. So I tried to go back to Syria because I said, okay, fine, I'm going to, and at least it's my country. I'll try to go there. So even going there, it's not allowed or easy for the Syrians. You need to get also a permission, and it's a long process. Even if you manage to go, it's also there it's much worse. So it depends on the area that you are going to sit. You need to get a permission from the what we call it, the military forces controlling that area. So it might be an Islamic oriented forces, it might be a Turkish allied forces. So it depends on the area, so that you need to manage, you need to get a permission for you. And during the 2019, my younger brother, has been arrested by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. They charge him that he was taking photos for their centers, or their security point, checkpoint or something. And in May 2019, they executed him without letting us know what happened to the investigation, why, and no lawyer allowed to visit him or go and ask about him. So that also made me change my mind to go back to Syria. And here, as we say in Turkey, it's very difficult. So I don't risk my life to jump in the boat and go to the sea unless I really in a bad situation that forced me to do so.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Hassan. Thank you very much for telling us your story and to testify against in front of everybody tonight. Marie, so once again, you're a member of this NGO Mare Liberum that is based in Lesbos and monitoring human rights violation in the agency. Could you give us an idea of why pushbacks are an issue? Why are they illegal? And what is the general situation right now in the Aegean? And if you can also mention the situation on the land border in the Evros area. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Jeremy. And also thank you, Hassan, for sharing your experience with us. I think it's very important that people get to hear these stories and to make them realize what's going on at European external borders. Because stories like Hassan's story, they are not the exception. They have become the absolute normality. So as Jeremy already explained, the situation changed dramatically in March 2020, when Erdogan announced that the borders were to Greece were open. And before that, there were already pushbacks happening by the Hellenic Coast Guard and by Frontex, and also pullbacks by the Turkish Coast Guards. But this was at a completely different level. It was more like incidents that would happen once in a while. Now it is happening systematically every single day. So up until today, we counted that this year there were 301 pushbacks in the Aegean Sea. That means that 9,292 people, so nearly 10,000 people, were pushed back only since March this year. And it has become the absolute modus operandi by the Hellenic Coast Guard, but they are closely cooperating, for example, with the European Border Protection Agency, Frontex, and also NATO ships have been involved. Also, we can see that this is, a massive scale on which it's happening. And yet to this point, the European Union or the Council of the European Union or any European leaders have failed to address the topic or to condemn these systematic human rights violations, even though there has been overwhelming evidence. There have been many testimonies like the one by Hassan we just heard. And there are even every major newspaper has reported about it, also presenting evidence. And there's different kinds of pushbacks. And so there's pushbacks, for example, where the Hellenic Coast Guard, sometimes even wearing masks, are attacking the boats, they're shooting at them. And in many cases, their engines are being disabled or stolen, or the petrol taken away, and the boats are being left adrift out on the sea. And sometimes for up to 1 day, where people, water is coming into the boats. You have to understand that most of the boats are rubber boats. They are per definition not made to be out on the open sea. And the problem is that also they're often overcrowded. So a lot of times also the Hellenic Coast Guard would drive by very closely and create waves to push them back towards Turkish water. There's also a very, very disconcerting move, which some people call Greek water polo, where Hellenic Coast Guard ships push a boat over to the Turkish side, and the Turkish Coast Guard once again tries to push them back onto the Greek side. And you can clearly see that refugees, who want to come to Europe to, finally find a safe place for themselves and their families, are being used as pawns in the political game. And not just themselves, their lives are being risked. And like I said, this is happening every single day. So there are these, incidents where the motors are being destroyed. There are also, like Hassan's case, where people are being forced into life rafts, which are not seaworthy. So it's super dangerous. A lot of times, or most of the times, all of their belongings and their phones are being taken. So they cannot contact the Turkish Coast Guard themselves if they're stuck there. And these life rafts sometimes have been so overcrowded that not all the people could fit inside. There has been cases documented where there were so many people forced into these swimming life rafts that some of the refugees had to swim outside holding onto the life raft. So this has become one of the most standard forms of pushbacks. But there's also, of course, there's pushbacks on land near the Evros border. There have been pushbacks from land where people had been even inside of camps for weeks, months, and in some cases even years. So they pretty much get kidnapped and forced back over the border. And then there have been, especially lately, a lot of cases of pushbacks from lands where refugees actually land on Greek islands and they hide in terror somewhere on, in the woods, and hoping that they can, find help. The problem is that, everybody is so afraid of the repression and the criminalization by the Greek government that, in most cases, at one point, they're being chased by the police and then once again put in life rafts and are abandoned out on sea. Another thing we have seen is that there is a disturbing rise in violence. So it's not just the technical, process of returning people over a border. There's also a lot of, well, screaming, but also beating. People have been been shot at. People had refugees where the gun was pointed to the head, their life was threatened, people's bones were broken and severely beaten. And this is quite the normality. Also, what is another aspect is the dehumanization. So people are being publicly put to shame, their clothes are being taken away. Sometimes they're stripped naked. Women's wigs were stolen, and people are, forced to kneel, and people, all their belongings were taken, and it was burned in front of them on land. This is not necessary for, pushing back people, but it's, taking away their sense of being a human. So all this is happening on a really, really large scale, and it shows similarities with the definition of torture, and that is used collectively. And the thing is that each one of these pushbacks is actually is illegal by different standards. So, for example, it's violating the 1951 Geneva Convention. So it is a human right for every human being to have the chance to seek asylum and to ask for international protection. And the legal version of a pushback would be a deportation, where this case, the claim for asylum is actually being looked at and it's being decided, and when it's being turned down, people are being deported. But if people don't even have the chance to ask for asylum, this is illegal. And also, it's also included in the non-refoulement project of the Fundamental Rights Charter of the European Union. So the very paper that defines the European Union states that pushbacks are illegal, which now are used every single day to supposedly protect European borders. Another thing why it's illegal is because these boats, or most of the boats that refugees take to cross the Aegean Sea, are per definition in distress. And by international maritime law, every captain has the duty to save the people. And if you listen to Hassan's case, they didn't not just save them, they first destroyed the boat or further ruptured it, then forced them back in it, and then forced them into sea unworthy life raft. So they didn't not just rescue them, they risked their lives intentionally. So yeah, pushbacks are illegal on many different levels. And like I said, so far, no major European leader has denounced the systematic human rights violations that have been happening in a major scale, and with nearly an industrial sense of efficiency.
Thank you, Mary. I think there are really two things that needs to be stressed, and it's the fact that a pushback is not a deportation. Deportation is a legal thing. And we have cases that are documented by ONG, but also by other organizations, Josur and others, of people who were actually waiting for a decision of asylum in Greece, and who were arrested by the police in Greece and sent to Turkey. It's not a deportation, it's pushback, it's completely illegal. You mentioned it at some stages, the involvement of Frontex, the European Border Protection Agency, prior to the March 2020 migration crisis. Frontex had kind of a light footprint on the land border and also in the Aegean Sea. And during the crisis, the European Commission asked Frontex to build up its presence there, with sending a lot of different units there. And interestingly, when the president of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, came to Greece during the crisis, she said that Greece was the shield of Europe. One could. It's difficult to do a better description of what sort of a fortress Europe is right now. Could you?
May I add that von der Leyen said that was thanking Frontex and the Greek border forces for the work, and said that they were the shield of Europe. And this was after one day after there were at least 2 people shot at the Evros border by Greek border police.
Yeah.
So and she had not a single word of mourning for, the 2, maybe even 3 people, it's still not quite clear, that were killed at the European border. But instead she thanked the people, who are protecting European borders with these measures.
Yeah, indeed. And there is another point to stress is when we speak about international law violation and European law violation, the European construction means that any European regulation has to be transposed into the law of all the member states, state members of the European Union. So when Greek border guards, when units of Frontex are violating European law and international law in the agency or at the land border, it's also violating the law of all the member states of the European Union. So it means that Portugal, Finland, France, Germany are also complicit of this thing. And something interesting is Frontex has this mechanism that it is supposed to be very attentive to human rights violation on the border. In its mission, they are supposed to provide serious incident reports when there are cases that they are witnessing. I don't have the figures in mind exactly, but the number was quite ridiculous for the last few years. Several newspapers and NGOs reported on the involvement of Frontex. Marie, could you develop a bit on this involvement? And would you think it's like a general policy of the agency, or is it just that the units that are serving in the operations that are happening in the agency are more like acting on their own? Some would say it's a rogue action, some others would say it's more a systematic policy of the agency.
Well, I must say also that it is very difficult to gather information in the Aegean Sea. As, for example, if you listened to Hassan's testimony, most of the time the telephones of refugees are taken and of course never returned. And for example, Marie Liberum, who I'm active with, we're usually supposed to go out into the Aegean Sea to monitor the situation there, but have been blocked by the Greek and by the German government. So it's very hard to gather information. But with the involvement of Frontex, there have been at least 6 cases where there's evidence that they were in some way involved. One very prominent case was made public in the beginning of March, where a Danish crew actually refused to carry out a pushback order, which they had received from the Hellenic Coast Guard. And they also claimed that this is, standard procedure. And they were actually supposed to be trialed for mutiny, for not carrying out an order. But at one point they were cleared. But it just shows that there is a systematic approach behind it, that border protection in this case means assisting the Hellenic Coast Guard in pushbacks and keeping people away from Europe with any means necessary. So there are footage of video footage and pictures showing that Frontex was involved. And it's not just Frontex, it's also ships under NATO command. For example, there has been a German ship where there's at least 4 cases where they were present. where boats were in severe distress, you know, where water was coming into the dinghies, the rubber boats of refugees, and they did not intervene. So there is several European actors out there that are clearly acting in a criminal way, somehow supporting the Hellenic Coast Guards with the pushbacks. And now, even now that the matter is more public, it's just come to the surface that, for example, Égée, who is the director of Frontex, has, you know, kept the lid on those things and has, you know, kind of stopped investigations from making these crimes public. And now there's, for example, a transparency activist group called Frag den Staat, who made a lot of evidence against Frontex involvement in pushbacks public. And now they're supposed to be dragged to court and face a really, really high fine that might, you know, financially put them in a, you know, a position where they can never work again. So yes, these crimes are happening, but they are also being covered up on many different levels.
Over the last few weeks, actually, since October, since actually the Spiegel, Bellingcat, and other media published a very, very in-depth investigation on these pushbacks, there has been a mounting pressure on the European Commission and also on Frontex to investigate this case. And the European Commission ordered the management board of Frontex to investigate the matter. Frontex is supposed to do it and to provide a public report on that. What can we expect from this internal investigation?
It really depends if you are an optimist or a pessimist. I personally really hope that there is going to be an independent investigation that is going to reveal all the facts and actually, you know, make all the evidence public. But since March, I have seen systematic human rights violations, and I have seen no response from the European Union or from high-ranking politicians from Europe. So at this moment, I am not very optimistic.
All right, and just to continue with the European Union, how does that fit in the general migration management policy of the European Union? There is supposed to be a European solidarity on the matter, and it seems that the European Union is letting Greece and Italy manage alone these questions and kind of turn a blind eye for the list on the methods that are used by both the agency and the Mediterranean Sea. What does that say about the European approach to this question? Is it like kind of we forget it and let you do whatever you want, or is it more like something that is planned ahead, in your opinion?
I think it's what you mentioned towards the latter. I mean, the European Union for a long time now has dumped most of the responsibility when it comes to receiving migrants onto the southern members, you know, like Malta, Italy, and Greece, and have left them completely alone, except for some, you know, money flows that cannot fix everything. So by you know, leaving them alone with a major task, a lot of problems have been created and have grown over the past 5 or 6 years. And even now in the new migration pact, there is talk about solidarity, but you know, this kind of solidarity, which, you know, usually has a really beautiful tone to it, is meant as in partnership when it comes to deportation. And to this point, there has, you know, never been a kind of like, you know, approach where the responsibility is divided equally among all the states, especially like the really rich countries that are in the center of Europe, and most of it is Germany and France, have denied to taking up more responsibility in dealing with the situation in a humane way, based on solidarity. So, of course, if countries like Malta, Italy, and Greece take to drastic measures and using systematic human rights violations and illegal actions, they're not really in the position to criticize them because they have left them alone. So this is also the vicious cycle of crimes being committed and nobody calling the people who are committing them, calling them out for it.
Right. Before we start taking questions from the audience, if you have any question, please you can start putting them on the chat. Our colleague and friend Nicolas, who is also on the call, will take them and relay them. And I think we have people also who are in Greece right now, and we also have a few are French representatives who are on the call. So if they want to say a word afterwards, they are most welcome to. Just before we move to these questions, you mentioned, Mary, an increasing criminalization of the monitoring of human rights abuses on the European borders. You mentioned the climate of fear. UNGO Mare Liberum, among others, is facing legal issues. There are cases open against them. There are some citizens, migrants, journalists who have faced judicial harassment, if not violence. Also, could you tell us a bit about this?
Yes. So, as you said, there has been an atmosphere been created of absolute fear and terror, because the Greek government is using systematic criminalization against people to silence the whole matter. First of all, it's refugees that are being criminalized. People who are trying to cross the Aegean Sea sometimes have been, sentenced for, decades of years in prison because they were accused of being smugglers, even though they are, just coming from war-torn countries and they want to stay in a safe place. Activists and journalists have been, harassed, imprisoned. Just a few weeks ago on Lesbos, there was a filmmaker, and when there was a landing, he was only nearby and wanted to give water to the people. And in a speed trial, he was sentenced to 12 months on probation within, like a couple of days. And this is what the justice system has come to. And right now there is an investigation, and it's quite a severe one against several NGOs and individuals. And most probably Mare Liberum is one of them. And it's to create pressure that people who report about pushbacks, who talk about them, who make evidence public, are facing the whole force of the Greek government. And a lot of people are too afraid to speak up right now, or to address the matter. And because people have gone to prison, and refugees have just suddenly disappeared and reappeared in prison in other places. So at the moment, the freedom of speech, the freedom of press is at real danger in Greece and other parts of European external border region.
So in France, a few years ago, we had a word for that, was the crime of solidarity, that was being created. Helping someone, hosting someone became a crime. Just before the first question, I just would like to ask you, Marie and Hassan, if there is something you would like to say to European representatives, European member states representatives, and also like citizens, on what should and what could be done on the matter. Mary, Hassan, who wants to start first?
I can start. I will keep it short. I just wanted to say that there are crimes against humanity being committed every single day, and it is to so-called protect the European Union. And too many people have been too silent for too long. And if we don't do anything, we also lose the privilege of calling ourselves, the European Union, which is based on certain values. And also, if human rights are not for everyone, they lose their meaning. So I'm asking everybody to increase the pressure on all levels so that this would be put to an end. And also, I think there needs to be a radical change in politics. There is no safe way for people to apply for asylum. People have to put their lives in danger. And this creates so many deaths and so much suffering, which is not necessary. It's just plain cruel. So yeah, I'm asking everybody to stand in solidarity with people.
All right, thank you, Mary. Hassan, is there something you would like to say?
Well, all what I can say that we were really close, very close to death. I mean, if the boat has been damaged and no rescue came to us, we don't know what's going to happen. So what I'm trying to say that we are not, careless people to risk our life in that way unless we are really forced to. So I just need people to understand that the situation in Syria and even for the refugees around Syria is not like what the media describe in the bitter situation, because describing it and living it, it's absolutely something different. We cannot describe what's really happening. Young people has been forced to sign up to the military forces to go fight outside Syria sometimes just to bring $100 a month to their family to feed them. People has sold their body part just to provide their children some food and to just prevent death to happen to them. So it's not a decision that we just lay down and think, okay, why we don't jump in the boat and go to a safer place. So it's a really hard decision to take, but it's been taken because there is a lot of circumstances and conditions behind that. So what I hope that the people who's blocking it, if they are going to continue blocking it, to do it in more human way, as Mary said, that those are people. They are not just boxes put in the boat. Each one of us has a story behind him, has a family, because we are risking our life to save some lives. So I just need to ask if they can act more human with the people that are trying to cross the borders, not like criminals, because we were treated like criminals, actual criminals. So we are really not like that. So that's all what I can add.
Thank you, Hassan. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mary. I think we have among our participants in the audience, Jean-Yves Leconte, is a French senator elected for the French living out of France. Jean-Yves, if you like to say a word, you're most welcome. I'm going to find you up. Here you are.
Yeah, hello. I don't know if you heard me. It's okay. Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you.
So thanks for this occasion for meeting in this way and to share some for your personal experiences and to share your personal observation on the situation I think concerning the pushback by Greek brother and girl, we know about that, and I even spoke with that concerning with the European Commissioner Ylva Johansson a few weeks ago, when she went to present the new migration pact the European Commission is preparing. We also speak about the situation with the role of Frontex concerning that, and it's clear that we are all concerned that it's necessary to have to give more possibility for the European Agency for fundamental rights to monitoring the action of Frontex, to make sure that there is no never action which is something like a pushback. Second thing concerning the migration pact, I'm quite pessimistic, frankly speaking, because when I see the project is in fact to keep all the person who want to come to Europe at the border in a similar way that we have in Moria, to make sure that asylum seekers will be kept to make a screening officially for a few days, but in fact it will be more long. And I don't see the difference, even if they say that it will be not the same than in Moria now. I don't see the difference with what we have now in some Greek island. Concerning the Dublin procedure, they say that we will change, but in fact we will not change, because it will be worse. It will be worse because the project is to, you know, that today when someone is in France, for example, and arrive through Italy, Italy is responsible 6 months on 6 months they need and they are obliged to accept the person to come back to Italy if France asks that. And after 6 months, France has to start to make the asylum procedure, to open the asylum procedure. Those people are waiting 6 months before having a procedure open for asylum. So, in fact, the situation we will make is that instead 6 months, it will be now, after the new project, more than 2 years of responsibility for the first country of Europe, which will be the entry country. So in fact, I'm quite pessimistic concerning the new system, and it's very important what you do now to explain that what's happened in Greece, what's happened in Turkey, because it's even if we know that the people are quite they don't feel that, and they believe that everything is okay in Turkey, everything is okay in Greece. And I don't see today the conscience that it's quite to change the situation for a better situation at the border. In my opinion, it will be worse and worse and worse, unfortunately, until we didn't manage to explain to a majority of politicians in France, in Europe, that make the way we do since 5 years to push, to try to push the situation outside of the border of Europe is just a way to have a situation which will be worse and worse and worse at the border, and no solution for nobody, no solution for the person who wants to have asylum in Europe, and a way to have worse and worse relationship between Europe and the country at our border. But I'm quite pessimistic about the situation. But it's important to know, specifically in the last week, where you see that between France and Turkey, there is no possibility to have good dialogue. to see and what you do, to say what you see, to be able to change the situation and what now we take in consideration to build the policy for the future.
All right, thank you very much, Jean-Yves Lecomte. Thank you very much for your intervention. Let's make sure that we don't have a negative policy in the coming years. Nicolas, who is also on the call, I think you started noting some questions from our public.
Yes, but first I wanted to leave the floor to Virgile, who wanted to express himself directly.
Sure. Right, go for it.
Thank you so much, Nicolas. I'm here, I'm there. Congratulations for this brilliant organization. It was extremely interesting and moving. The moving is a word, actually. When I was listening to Hassan, and I wrote in the chat, I experienced it. Actually, it was a personal experience because lots of my friends, I was working in Syria for a few years, and lots of my friends were in transit in Turkey, and I was doing my best to help them. So your story, I heard a lot, and actually it's great to hear it again. You know, we need to, because we forget. You know, and we need to hear it over and over. You know, because then it refresh, you know, everything, and that's very, very important for us. And my question is about, because my Syrian friend, and as you, especially the son of a friend, the father is now in Germany, and the son tried to go back to Syria. At the time, the border was a little bit more open, and actually my question is about, you tried to go back to Syria. I didn't pay attention exactly. And how is the situation to go back to Syria? Can you do that? Is it tougher than before? How about the process? Can you a little bit give me some more details when some Syrians would like to go back to their own country? And of course, there are some political issues. If you're an opponent or if you have some files on you, it's another issue. But how are the procedures at the moment compared to the last years? That's my question for you, Hassan. Thank you again so much.
You are most welcome, Virgile. But the situation now, there is no way to go to Syria now, except the doctors who has a contract working there, that they have a permission from the Turkish government. Because of the corona now, it's completely not allowed to go to Syria now. But previously, for the people who's living in Turkey, there is two, let's say, holidays that they can visit Syria during those holidays. One in Ramadan holiday, and the second one in Adha holiday. We call it holiday. It's 2 times. So you have to submit your request to the authorities based on your province, and then you have to wait the permission to be issued. But last year it's been cancelled due to the coronavirus issues. So there is no way now to go unless you have a special permission from the Turkish government, like if you are like maybe a Turkish citizen who has worked with the Turkish offices there in Syria, especially for the areas where a Turkish allied forces controlling that area. So it's very, very difficult now to cross the borders to Syria, or even vice versa, to cross the border from Syria to Turkey legally. We are talking about the legal way.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Hassan. Nicolas, I'll let you take on.
Yes. So we have a first question from Jean-Michel, who is asking whether there are some legal actions undertaken already by NGOs against, notably against Frontex. And I guess it would be a question for Marie. Did you hear me?
Yes, I heard you. Sorry, I had to unmute myself. So at the moment, well, it is very difficult to approach or to sue Frontex. I mean, this is something, for example, there was a German ship that was involved in under NATO command that was where the captain was sued by an individual person because first of all they were involved in illegal pushbacks, but mostly the case was because he did not rescue migrants that were in distress. But but the case was pretty much like finished with a really short amount of time. As you know, NGO or individuals, it's very hard to sue organizations as powerful as Frontex or ships under NATO command. So this is actually something that can be done, but it would be more promising if it would happen on European level, if the European Council, for example, would do it, or even if Den Haag would say, this is, there have been crimes against humanity and this needs to be addressed.
Right. Another question from Marie-Rose, which may have been partly answered already, but let me again mention it. So beyond a few media stories, have international institutions been alerted about this situation?
What kind of institutions are being referred to?
Let me guess, let's say UN or beyond that, I don't know, UNHCR maybe.
Well, actually, UNHCR, of course, is involved. They're active on the ground. And in actually a lot of testimonies, migrants who have reached land, first called UNHCR, are asking for protection because they were really afraid of pushbacks. And instead, UNHCR passed on their location and their information to the police, who then illegally returned them to Turkey and also beat them up. So at this point, it's also very difficult, like who do you address? Which institution is, not within this group of networks that have an interest in, keeping things running the way they are. And actually, I must admit that I don't know if any other institutions or like higher, levels of authorities have been addressed.
All right. Now I have a series of questions that I think are more or less connected. So I'm gonna throw them to you in a row. First, it's my question. Talking about Frontex, I'm wondering actually who's guilty? I mean, is it the states who decide the actual behavior of Frontex? Is it the heads of Frontex? Is it the agents of Frontex? And then we have a second question coming from Jules, asking you your point of view, Marie. Why does the EU break its own laws? Do you think they are trying to send a message of deterrence to refugees or all people in need who have not sought refuge yet? And what's your concrete demands to EU and Frontex? I think it goes more or less together. And then a third one from Jean-Michel, who is asking what will be more efficient to put the pressure on the authorities involved?
Okay, that's a lot of questions at once. I very much, well, it was phrased as a question, but still I very much agree with what Jules wrote. And I think this is the core of the problem. It is a policy of deterrence. And it's pushbacks is just one part of it. But if you, for example, look at the camps on the Greek soil, for example, on Lesbos, the infamous camp Moria, where people are dehumanized every single day. I mean, this camp, has like camps that have existed for a long time, still no proper medical care, no running, like proper running water, no showers, and it's, raiding people to a state where they, a lot of people they refer, like animals. And I think yes, there is a system behind it, hurting, humanizing people, and as the outside world saying, like, even if you come from a war-torn country, maybe you stay there. Maybe it's better for you rather than to come to Europe. So I think this is also one of the reasons why Frontex, I mean, this is not a rogue mission by individual crews or the behavior of, you know, single countries. I think this is a European effort to shield their borders by any means necessary. And people have died, and people have died, and unless there's going to be a change, many more will die. And yes, I'm a big fan of the idea of to abolish Frontex at all, or to at least defund them, because they're getting massive funds, and to make sure that, you know, they actually protect human rights rather than violate them.
If you don't mind, I'm going to reiterate Jean-Michel's question, which is, what can a citizen do? What can he do to put pressure, and to whom? And maybe extend it, and what can a French senator do? Mary.
Oh, a French, oh, sorry. I thought you were passing on the question to the president. I think at this point, it's the same thing for all of us. The topic needs to be addressed, and it needs to be made public, and it needs to be like addressed so drastically and on all levels that everybody knows about it, and that the pressure increases, that at one point politicians, no matter where their political standing is, are seeing themselves forced to change the migration policy and to end this disaster that is happening every day. I mean, if people stand in solidarity and really want to change something, that is something incredibly powerful, that is easily controlled, you know, by people in power. So
any request to a French senator right now at your disposal?
Just one thing concerning Frontex and the responsibility of Frontex. Frontex is all the time under the monitoring, theoretically, because in fact it's not all the time the situation, but in fact Frontex is not acting alone. Frontex is theoretically all the time under the monitoring of the country member, the member of European Union when they act. In fact, if they act with Greek border guards, they are under monitoring of Greek border guard, and this is Greece who takes the responsibility of the action of Frontex. This is the situation today.
Well, maybe I can mirror the question to you. What do you think is within your limits of power to change the situation?
This is concerning the you know it's a political it's political decision in each country of European Union. You see how it is sensitive in France, the migration situation, and until we have a government who want to keep the policy we have since few years, nothing will change. And unfortunately, when I see, as I told you before, the proposal of the European Commission, I think everything will go in a worse. Make the situation, you know, worse than today. For migrants in the country, in relation with our neighbor, when you see that today we want to make a connection between visa delivery on the way the country of origin accept to keep back the people from to keep back the people who are illegally on the territory of European Union, and that's today to change the situation. It's with the problem is that Central Europe don't want to make solidarity, but we know that, and even if they accept, it will change nothing on the global asylum policy of Europe. The way to change it is to make a more comprehensive policy between France and Germany, for example, because we are the two countries who keep the more important quantity. Together, we have more than 300,000 asylum seekers each year. So, in fact, we can change the game alone if we want. But we prefer today to explain that Hungary don't want to make solidarity, so everything is blocked. Because in fact, we don't want to change the policy. Because European people, they are afraid. You see, our populists are strong in each country, and even a lot of political parties who are not populist, they don't have the courage to push a clear different policy for asylum and migration, and that's the problem. That's the problem. We try to convince. To explain that at the border, Turkey do more than European Union, but in fact it's very hard, and we need more support of the public opinion in Europe to be able to progressively change the game, making public opinion in Europe conscious of that if we continue in this way, it will be just worse and worse and worse. Worse for everybody, worse for Europe, worse for dignity, worse with our neighbor. And in fact, it's without issue. We need to keep, we need to come back to a situation where we respect the dignity of the person, we respect the life, and we respect our neighbor.
Right. If I can just add something here, there are like simple steps that can be taken also to indeed make this question more visible. There are dozens of NGOs and collectives and organizations that are working.
Jeremy, sorry, can you speak louder, please?
Oh, sorry, excuse me.
Very difficult to understand you.
Right. There are dozens of NGOs and collectives and committees all across Europe and in the neighboring countries of Europe that are working for changing the European policies on migration, welcoming refugees and migrants with dignity, humanly, providing legal support to them, providing legal support to also those who are attacked for providing them help and a human welcome in Europe. And these NGOs, they always, and these groups and these people, they always need help and support. And I mean, there is something that is quite amazing in France. What I know is that only in Paris, there are hundreds of people, mainly from Afghanistan, but also from Pakistan and other places, who are sleeping in the street. We had a very good demonstration when they started sleeping on the main square of Paris on the Place de la République. And it became an issue when the police attacked them suddenly, and because they were visible suddenly. As soon as they are not in the center of the cities, they disappear. And it's like if we were refusing to see it. So, I mean, as individual citizens, it is possible to first support NGOs that are working on the question, and then also just to take part into street actions and daily activities, and to help people, to welcome them, and then to oppose these very xenophobic policies towards them. Yeah, I mean, there are concrete steps that can be taken here, and the more we are in the street, and the more we are visible, and the more action we take, the more effect it can have in the future. If especially people in the left, are not taking the streets. Only the populists are visible, and I mean, only the right and the extreme right is visible in this question. It is clearly not enforcing the policies we would like to see. And yeah, Nicolas, I'm giving you back the floor.
Yes, we have one further question from Eva, asking about the fact that European Union is a member of the European Convention of Human Rights. So could there be a case against the European Union as a whole in front of the European Court of Human Rights for violating the right to life and for inhuman and degrading treatments? That I think would be a question to Mary.
I honestly love the idea of the European Court or the European Union being taken to court. As I'm no law expert, I'm not quite sure if it's possible, but so I have heard that there is also thoughts about taking of pushbacks to the ICC, so the International Court. But to be honest, I'm not quite sure if it's possible and who would have to do these, proceedings.
Maybe I can give you something about that. European Union as an entity is not part of the European Convention for Human Rights. There is today negotiation, because it's in the Lisbon Treaty. In the Lisbon Treaty, European Union has to be a full member as union of European Convention of Human Rights. But today it's not done because there is some discussion and objection to that. So today, European Union is not able to be as a jurisdictional object to be in court in Strasbourg. It will be maybe possible in a few years, but the negotiations are not closed. But that's why today, when something is done with Frontex, and we believe that Frontex done something against the CEDH, it's all the time possible because they are all the time working under the supervision of the member state where they act. Today it's Greece for this pushback. So it's Greece. And it's clear that I spoke with the director of Frontex a few times, and he don't like this idea to see European Union as a member of CEDH, because at this time, Frontex as a body will have to have to be able to be in front of the Strasbourg courts. So that's the situation. And concerning maybe the situation before, specifically in France, I think we need to change two things. We need to give the right of formation and the right to work to every asylum seekers at the beginning of the procedure. Because in fact, when the procedure is sometimes 6 months, but sometimes 18 months, how you want the people are able to be autonomous if they cannot speak French, learn French, and work? And sometimes they want. And at the end, they don't have the possibility to get anywhere to find a lodgement. And in the best solutions, they stay at the place specifically done for asylum seekers. And after, we don't have place for the other one. And that's the problem. Although we need to change that in France, because in fact, in the European regulation, we should give the right to work after 6 months, but we don't do it.
Another question from Julian. As NGOs are investigating on human rights violations of the EU authorities, what threats and legal dangers do they face? I think when you're in conflict with police and authorities, they have quite a power to silence and punish you. I guess it's a question to Mary again.
Yes, like I said before, so there is systematic criminalization against NGOs and activists and also journalists who report on human rights violations, especially pushbacks. In our case, as Mar Liberum, beginning of September, our boat was searched by the or raided by the Hellenic Coast Guard, by special forces and police. Most of our crew members were taken to the police station and held there for a really long time. There are probable charges against us that are super severe. And we are definitely not the only ones. Just today, another NGO, Aegean Boat Report, was claimed to have connections with smugglers or to, be involved with smuggling themselves. And they provide assistance to people who cross the Aegean Sea. And so the Greek government is trying to criminalize and silence everybody who is reporting about the issues, and also to damage their reputation by throwing around severe charges like espionage is one of the most typical claims, and also contacts or with human smugglers or being human smugglers themselves. And yes, this is a method to discredit people who report and to silence people. And since the beginning of the year, for example, only on the island of Lesbos, there have been several NGOs that stopped working because they said it's not safe anymore, and they cannot risk having volunteers go there and work for them in the atmosphere that is there right now.
I don't have any other question right now, but maybe if you allow me, I could ask one to Hassan. I was wondering Hassan, what your feelings are regarding the attitude of Turkey, which on one side is welcoming every Syrian refugee, but in the same time is not giving a full refugee status, and is sometimes seems like it's playing with refugees' lives and destiny by making statements like we're opening the border to Greece. Well, what are you feeling, Hassan?
Well, what I feel that we have been used as political cards. If Turkey want to push on the European Union, they use the refugees. Every time they use us as a threat to the neighbors, let's say. So the door was open before, but not anymore. Now, if you want to go from Syria to Turkey, you have two ways. The first one, you have to be one of the close allied forces to Turkey. The second one is for human, let's say, needs. If you are in very critical situation, health, very critical situation, and if certain health centers write that you need to go and have a better treatment in Turkey, they might allow you to enter Turkey, but the patient can come with one person only, or sometimes without, depends on the condition. So this is the only way now to go to Turkey. It was open before, but not anymore. Now the people here in Turkey, so for them, they are depending on themselves. There is the support that they are getting from the Turkish government is some of them getting support who's living in the camps or in the, let's say, the assembly area or something, but through the they call it the Kızılay, the
red crescent.
Yes, something like this. The rest is depending on self. For me, even I spent all my saving in Turkey. I didn't get any support from Turkey. Now I moved from Istanbul to Hatay. I tried to register my daughter in the school. They told me that your ID issued by Istanbul, so we cannot give you an address registration here in Hatay. I told them I don't need anything. I just need my daughter to go to school. It's impossible that I'm in Turkey and my daughter now in the first grade and she cannot go to school. They said, we cannot help you. This is in the school. I went to the immigration. I went to several departments here. I couldn't register my daughter at school. Now there is no school because of Corona, but it was open, and my daughter at home because they refused to register my daughter at school because my ID is issued, or her ID, of course, issued in Istanbul. That's crazy. I'm not asking for anything. I just need my daughter to go to school. So regardless of the issuing of my ID, it's not logic that to keep a child at home because of this issues. So this is one of the things that we are facing here. So we are paying here the same taxes and same fees that the Turkish paying, and we are getting nothing. So it's very critical. Now, if you have money here, you may survive here in Turkey, but if you don't have any income, you cannot stay here, really. You cannot even live one day here, because every day there is a certain expense you have to, it's by default, you have to pay it. So it's very critical, to be honest with you. That's why I thought of going to Syria. But I changed my mind, because one day I called my sister in Syria, and I was talking to her, and her daughter was 11 years old. I was asking her about school and how it's going. Then I heard a shooting. I said, oh, what's that? And her daughter told me that, don't be worried, it's just a Shelka bullet. It's 14.5. I said, how do you know that? She said, from the sound, I know what kind of weapon is there. Then I thought, that's crazy. I don't want my children to know the type of the gun by hearing the sound. I cannot live there. So this is what the people they're facing. The children knows the type of weapon based on the sound, because it become like grabbing bread from the market. The weapon is everywhere. So yeah, so this is what we are facing here in Turkey and back in Syria. That's why we risk our life to cross the sea with a very bad conditioned boat to seek for some safe place to stay. That's it.
Thank you, Hassan.
We will just take, there were just two last questions asked. One was, the last one was for Hassan, asking if you were fearing any consequences for giving this type of testimony, considering that certainly going to Greece or the EU is not an option for you anymore, but is it also dangerous in Turkey from a political standpoint to get involved into any sort of political activism?
Well, I don't know yet.
Right. Yeah, right. That's a good answer. The last question was from, oh, actually, there is a last one. Let's say it's the last one, because then we need to let everybody go. So it's a question again for Hassan. If it's not too personal, what are your plans for the future? Does you have a country that you are aiming for? And are there many networks in Turkey managed by the Syrian authorities?
I did not get the last part. What's the
Maybe
network managed
Jean-Michel,
by
if you
the
like
Syrian authority?
I don't quite know. Maybe Jean-Michel, you can reformulate it. But until he reformulates it, do you have any plan for the future? What are your plans now?
So, to be honest, the plan is to deal with the situation now. Going back to Syria is impossible. Here is very difficult. So I'm trying to find a way where I can go to find a better place and safe place for my family. So maybe I'm contacting a couple of universities so that I can submit for a master or something, completing my study. To be honest, I don't have a clear idea about this. So I just came from a very bad experience. So I'm just exploring my options. I don't have really any solid plan, let's say, here.
All right. Okay. The last question was from Mario's. If you don't mind, I'm going to answer it. It was about like the several studies showing that many people, many Syrians living in Turkey don't want to go back to Syria, and that there is a very high number of naturalization, citizenship given to Syrians living in Turkey. So first of all, the citizenship given to refugees living in Turkey is not that high. It's a few tens of thousands of people indeed, and it's mainly people who have been living here for more than 5 years, and it's quite restricted. There is a big argument that is made by some political factions in Turkey saying that one of the projects of the government is to have many people will get citizenship and so then vote for the government and so on and so on. It's a lot about a conspiracy. It's not proven by facts. And in the last election in 2019, there was something like 50,000 Syrians who were actually able to vote in the election. As for the number of people who want to go back, indeed, the Turkish government has this big project of it was one of the justification for the operations in the Jarabulus area, Afrin area, and also in this land part between Ras Al Ain and Tal Abyad in the northeast of Syria. The Turkish authorities were saying they were going to create cities there for at least 1 to 2 million guests, as they're calling them, so Syrian refugees to be able to go back there. The thing is, there is no security in these places. There is no security in Idlib. It's still being bombed right now. There is no security in Afrin. There is no security in Jarabulus, nor in any other places. And going to areas that are held by the regime of Damascus in the other places is out of question, because there are cases of people went there, and when you arrive there, either you are arrested, you are blackmailed, you are ransomed, your belongings are taken away from you. And where do you go to? Like you left the country years or even months before, your house is probably destroyed or taken away from you. So going to Syria right now is completely out of question for people. There is absolutely no safety for anyone in Syria right now. For the last 5 years or 4 years, since actually the fall of the city of Aleppo, there has been this permanent speech that the war in Syria was coming to an end. It's not coming to an end. It's not at all coming to an end. It has never been as violent as it is now in Syria. It's not because Daesh disappeared that the war is over. So this question of migration of people coming from Syria is going to continue for a lot of time. And the thing is, over the last year and a half, there has been a massive economic crisis in Syria right now. that is doubled with the corona epidemic right now. People struggle to even find bread, so there is no way a return to Syria is possible, as there is no way for a return to Afghanistan, because there is also this dimension that we didn't speak about today, but pushbacks there are also at the border between Turkey and Iran. People are prevented from entering in Turkey, and there is this question of sending them back to Afghanistan too. It's out of question for many people, because it's a question of life and death once again. Dear friends, I think we were hoping for a conference of 1 hour and a half. We are at more than 2 hours almost. Thank you very much for attending to it. Thank you, really thank you very much to our two guests, Hassan and Marie. Really, for your great words. Hassan, thank you for your testimonies. Marie, thank you for taking the time to explain us everything like this. We hope to have you again and to keep in touch. I wish you good luck to both of you. And yes, hope to see you soon again. As for our conferences, there will be another one in January, this time not on migration, not on elections. We're going to speak about climate activism. We need to organize that, and everybody will be welcome. I'm afraid it's going to be in French this time, but we can work out some translation at some stage. Thank you very much to everybody, and especially to our two guests, and to also Jean-Yves.
Thank you all. Thank you all for hearing us. Thank you all for hearing us. It's really inspiring when I see people caring about this and taking all this time just to hear us and hear what's happening. I believe that there is hope. That's really for me is very important. Thank you all for your time to be here and hear what's happening with people in 100 kilometers far from you. That's really something we appreciate a lot.
Thank you again, and good evening, everybody, and let's keep in touch, and there is hope always. Thank you.